Ben, gut schmeißen.
Rummelsberg, a Bavarian village 20 kilometers from Nuremberg. It has a school where you can train to become a deacon, a community house where the evangelical Lutheran brothers live and work, and a church that is a spiritual home to more than 1,000 deacons and deaconesses throughout Bavaria. If you wanted to start a rebellion in Rummelsberg, all you'd need to do is abolish the practice of bell ringing by hand.
Gut. Ich fange an, Felix, du machst weiter. Jules, du setzt dann ein, wenn der Felix anfängt, ne? Jo. Und los.
Sacristan duties are part of their training, attending to the candles, putting up hymn numbers, and organizing services. The deacons won't often have to ring bells in the future, but all the other things they learn here will stand them in good stead, in homes and youth groups, hospitals, and church administration.
It's wonderful work. I'm very happy to be a deacon.
I view it as being a servant at the Lord's table.
You commit yourself to a way of life that's no longer commonplace in the modern world.
It was definitely my calling.
The deacons built St. Philip's Church in the 1920s, when Rummelsberg was a wasteland. Supposedly, there's a star on the ceiling for each brother, but there's no point in counting them. The community is much larger now. The message of the frescoes in the sanctuary is more important anyway. The 7 works of mercy: to give drink to the thirsty, to visit prisoners, to bury the dead, to heal the sick, to shelter the homeless, to feed the hungry, and to clothe the naked. Exhortations of the gospel and the deacon's edict.
Wir gehen,
10 brothers have completed their training. The rector, Gunther Breitenbach, and the heads of the Rummelsberg fraternity are going to bless them in a special service.
gehen dann diesen Weg hoch, an dem auch
Stellt euch einfach gleich mal so mit hin.
And that must be rehearsed.
If you do this correctly, you should all be in the right place for the exit.
It takes 6 years of study to become a deacon, including vocational training. Guests have arrived from Tanzania.
We have to stand differently. You go into the first row. Yes, like that. Then the others have to change their position. It's just as well we've rehearsed it. No, you go to the front row now. Then it'll work.
When I call somebody forward, it's not to bring them closer to somebody in the congregation. Don't say hello to anybody, not even your girlfriend. Now let's begin.
I call Brother Matthias Bär.
They've spent the past week reflecting on what it means to be called and to be given a mission.
Here I am. Send me.
They already know the work that they will be doing.
Matthias Bär, I bless you in the office of deacon in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Bavaria.
Matthias will do youth work. Others will provide care for people with disabilities or young refugees. One of them will work as a nurse. Others will do youth outreach like Matthias.
I call Brother Patrick Herderlich.
Here I am. Send me.
You are blessed and should be a blessing.
Peace be with you.
sei mit dir.
Did I stand up too quickly?
Eigentlich schon, ja.
Some things are strictly regulated, others develop spontaneously.
Did you hear? The other part has to come first.
Hier bin ich, sende mich.
The young men aren't used to kneeling.
If any of you need help, we'll be happy to help you up.
And he really means that. Fraternal help is an important part of this community for life.
Perfekt.
Then the gift from Tanzania is presented. The visitors are from the Faraja Center in Arusha.
Wakati wa mitume kazi ilifanywa kwa bidii, si nguvu zao wenyewe. Wakati wa mitume kazi.
Based on the Rummelsburg model, young Tanzanians are trained there to serve as deacons in the Lutheran Church. It also includes a school for children and youth with disabilities. The Rummelsburg brothers helped establish the center and are gradually handing it over to the Tanzanians. The elected senior brother is Martin Neukam. We asked him what qualities a deacon should have.
Firstly, he should be passionate and enthusiastic about people. And if he also wants to perform this service as a disciple of Jesus Christ, that's really great.
Johann Heinrich Wichern was a founder of the home mission movement in Germany in the 19th century. He exhorted Christians to practice saving love, and he traveled throughout the country, preaching and establishing hospitals, schools, homes, and rescue stations. Eight young men from Nuremberg were inspired by his message. They took lessons from a pastor and a teacher, lived together in rooms rented from a widow. Their driving force was the Society for the Home Mission, which later financed a number of charitable institutions. In 1905, a small community moved to the Rummelsburg area. Like Wichern in Hamburg, the brothers provided young people with vocational training. Each of them had learned a trade. They were cobblers and tailors, bricklayers and carpenters. They cared for the needy in a spirit of brotherhood. At the training center in Rummelsburg, they led a community life with their pupils. Together, they constructed St. Philip's Church, building it with stone from their own quarry. Those who earned enough to support a family got married, provided the heads of the fraternity approved of the bride. The community house in Rummelsburg was consecrated in 1931. The training center had become too small. The community had grown. Today, the building houses young deacons during part of their training. This is a time for testing their calling, says Günther Tischer.
This is a gift from Tanzania. It's Christ washing the feet of a disciple. Here, Jesus is performing the service of a deacon. In a passage from Luke's Gospel, he says, "I am among you as one who serves." In the original Greek, it says, "I am among you as a diakonos." Jesus describes himself as a deacon. He is someone who washes other people's feet. He's not somebody who appears as a lord and master. He says, "I am the same as you, and that's why you can perform a deacon's service just as I do." He is my role model.
Günther Tischer is the house manager, a function that used to be called housemaster. His wife is his deputy, but she has her own contract. Previously, she would have been called the house mistress and would not have been paid. Dinner, the shared meal, is part of the community life, just as much as the prayer services. But if an individual brother would rather cook, he may do so in his residential group. These days, the corridors of the community house look pretty much like those of any secular community, except there are more Bibles on the bookshelves. At the start and at the conclusion of their training, the deacons are required to live together at Rummelsberg. The fraternity is both a community of service and of shared life. These early years are intended to forge enduring bonds. If they marry one day, their wives will also be part of the community. Incidentally, the phenomenon of the deacon's wife throws an interesting light on the history of women in the 20th century. Present-day deacons' wives have written a book in which they trace this development. For centuries, they stood in their husband's shadow. The orphanages and old age homes of the past generally got 2 workers for the price of 1.
It was a completely different world. I was shocked at how humbly, how unquestioningly these women accepted the system, gave up their careers and served to support their husbands. That was their task in life, and it was unpaid.
A speech by the rector in 1921 illuminated how a deacon's wife should behave. A deacon's wife must show dignity in her dress and deportment, and her husband is the head of the house, so she must be its heart, and not be seen too often taking afternoon coffee. In the 1970s, she learned how to behave in 6 monthly courses of bridal instruction. She hadn't just married a man, but an entire community. Living the Christian faith in a community and combining it with social work seems to attract people even today.
In my case, it was like this. I thought, that's what I really want to do. At the time, I wanted to become a nursing deacon. I thought it would allow me to do the things that were really important to me.
One of the large Rummelsberg centers for people with disabilities is Auhof, near Nuremberg. Today, visitors are welcome here. It's no longer considered standard practice to separate people with disabilities from the rest of society. For the residents of Auhof, life has changed in many ways. They were asked, if given the choice, how they would like to live in the future. That led to no fewer than 120 moves, not just on the farm itself, but also to nearby towns.
It took more than a year to ask everybody, all the carers, the families and the staff, and get an objective picture of what each person required, as well as to discover the person's own wishes and needs.
This group decided to move from Auhof to the nearby town of Hilpoltstein. They wanted to live in small residential groups as independently as possible. Alexander Schmidtmeyer belongs to the group. This move has opened up a new world for him. He now has further to travel to work, but he enjoys the ride. A day at the workshop has its ups and downs, like any job. highlight of the week is the cooking course he registered for. Today, the group is learning how to cook Nuremberg sausages with onions. Over the years, the Brotherhood of Deacons has made enormous strides.
In some ways, an institution like this is an all-encompassing organization. It's your employer and athletics club. It provides you with an ideology, the church, everything. It organizes your leisure time. It's a closed universe. If you fit in, it's fine. These days, we view our clients differently. We respect their wishes and their right to choose. We no longer think we know what's best for them, as if we were always the givers and they the recipients.
On certain evenings, the bar and club at Aalhof is open, and Alex is a regular. And at some point, Rita usually turns up too. There used to be only brothers in Rummelsberg. Then, in 1982, a community of deaconesses was founded. The women have their own organization and leadership, but they train together with the men. Some branches of vocational training have moved to Nuremberg and Ebenried, but those who want to become a teacher's aide, like Miriam Büllner, follow an external study program.
I've always been interested in religion on the one hand and working with people on the other. Here you can combine the two things wonderfully.
The deaconesses live in the old parsonage, which used to be the rector's house. Establishing the community and gaining recognition from the regional church was no easy matter, but now the male and female communities complement each other perfectly. When men study together with women and they share the same convictions, the consequences are inevitable. Teachers are no exception.
I met my husband, who is a deacon in Rummelsberg. Through the many shared interests and also the shared life, many relationships are formed that otherwise might not have. It's hard for people on the outside to understand what we do here. We work completely different schedules, and that requires a lot of coordinating to make time for each other and to give each other personal space.
Sometimes children follow in their parents' footsteps.
My dad said, "Don't do it. Don't take this load on your shoulders." He told me to think about it carefully because he knows what it involves. But of course he is proud of me. It's wonderful to be part of a large community of women like this for the whole of your life. We live together in one house, but we're all individuals, so it can be trying at times. The first 3 years in Rummelsberg were very difficult for me. It was a challenge to be in a place where there was always something going on. I had to learn to withdraw and yet still be a part of the community.
Dann sich auch zurückziehen zu können, aber trotzdem auch in der Gemeinschaft präsent zu sein. Ich kann erzählen,
I can tell you the other women in the community gave me tremendous support. They carried me through spiritual and personal crises, so I never considered throwing in the towel.
Und insofern das Hinschmeißen nie zur Debatte stand.
We're united by the fact that we all have the same God in whom we believe, but each of us lives the faith in her own way.
Bei dir, Herr, ist die Quelle des Lebens. In deinem Lichte sehen wir das Licht.
There are now almost 300 women in the community. Once a year, they meet in Rummelsberg, otherwise in regional groups throughout Bavaria.
Deine Güte, Gott, dass Menschenkinder Zuflucht haben unter dem Schatten deiner Flügel. Ehre sei dem Vater und dem Sohn und dem Heiligen Geist.
They say the community doesn't restrict them, but provides strength and support. And it doesn't result in uniformity.
You'll find every kind of woman here that you find in the regional church. That means there are sometimes tensions. They have to deal with completely different people with other forms of spirituality, other attitudes to life. But because what they share is so great and so strong, there's room for everyone. It's a home for different kinds of people who aren't forced to be the same.
Rummelsberg is no longer isolated. It has a local train station, and Nuremberg is not far away. But the deacons still provide their own recreation. The beer cellar is open once a week. This bar for the trainee deacons is very popular. There's even a sign that reads, "Beer is the proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy." No killjoys here. These brothers live in the real world.
The beer cellar used to be a storeroom for potatoes. Then 35 years ago, the old housemaster, Günther Feitel, said, "Hey guys, you can have the cellar." And we said, "We'll turn it into a club room for the brothers." And the club room developed into a student bar. And now it's part of the training program.
The organizational and business skills learned here will be useful to the deacons who do youth work, and not just to them.
You can learn a lot simply standing behind the bar and talking to people. I like to call it the pub pastoral activity. Of course, you only have 5 minutes to say, "How are you doing? I haven't seen you in a while." But it's a completely different context from meeting outside in a task force.
Apart from which, it seems that the brothers in Rummelsberg are pleased not to be on their own.
It's not just the brothers who come here, the deaconesses also drop by. Sometimes that's very enticing, but things develop quite naturally.
Times have changed. The rector and community leaders have less power. Women have established themselves as an integral part of Rummelsberg. And the work has changed.
Sometimes we're envious of the old days. I don't know why. They say there were more practical jokes and silliness.
The enthusiasm with which they tell their stories is infectious. When I return here in 30 years, I hope the cellar still exists. I would like to sit here as they do and tell stories about the old days.
They've reached their goal and we're just starting out. They sit there, brothers in retirement you could say, and talk of their successes as deacons. They're our role models. And one day I'd like to tell my story as they tell theirs.
A brotherhood of deacons on its way through history. Many things have changed, not for the sake of fashion, but to serve people better. And Rummelsberg's future? To continue training deacons and deaconesses to serve with love.